Hello and welcome back. Decided to change up the seating arrangement for today because I didn't feel like sitting so low to the ground for so often, and then also I can swivel a little bit, which is fun. Anyways, I'm here to give you my March wrap up, which I had one of the best reading months that I've had in a very long time. I read almost every single day in March. I think there was only 1 or 2 days where I didn't get pages in, but I also listened to a ton of audiobooks because I had time, and I got a vlog up too, which I will talk about. But it was a good month overall. Let me pull up the official stats. I've been tracking my yearly stats for each month, and for March I read a total of 11 different books. 3 of them were entirely physical. 1 was an ebook, 7 on audio. I owned 4 of them, and 3 of them technically counted as a reread because it was The Hunger Games, but that was just the general overlook. But this is the most I've read at all this year so far. So let's get into the breakdown of that. I mentioned this before, I have a vlog up on my channel, and it is about the Hunger Games trilogy because I was preparing to read Sunrise on the Reaping, and I did finish Sunrise on the Reaping, but that is going to shift over to my April wrap up because I did finish it the first few days into April. But I revisited this trilogy for the first time in almost a decade at this point, and I had the best time. This series just reminded me how fantastic Suzanne Collins' writing is, how brilliant her mind is, and why the hype is 1000% worth it. I have more in-depth thoughts in that vlog. I also have lots of kitty videos in that vlog, so if you want to go check that out, I would highly recommend, and I'm always looking for tips on how to improve those because I know vlogs are pretty popular and I don't have as much time as the normal person does for it, but I did enjoy making this one, especially because the content in it is just so great. But this was an absolute treat. Every single book in here was either 4, 4.5, or 5 stars. Just a really fantastic series. Taken all of my willpower not to talk about this book because I read my new favorite book of the year at the very beginning of March, and I've already considered rereading it 3 different times because it is just so good. So good that I went out and I bought for full price the hardcover of this book so that I can own it and annotate it again. I also consumed it on audio the first time, and I would like to have the physical reading experience, but I listened to that audiobook in 1 day. Could not put it down. I was so emotionally invested in this story. The book in question is none other than I Hope This Finds You Well by Natalie Sue. This is the type of literary fiction book that I love, and I read this book at the perfect time. I'm gonna get teary just thinking about it, honestly. I had one of my friends recommend me this book, and she and I have very similar tastes, and I'm so glad that I ended up just picking this up randomly and enjoying it as much as I did. So this book follows our main character Jolene, and she's kind of working this really dull administrative assistant support type job for this huge corporation, and she is in her mid-30s, finding no enjoyment in life, hates going into work, doesn't know what she's going to do next with her life. So she decides, as a way to cope with this, to start including random little tidbits in her emails to her coworkers about what she actually thinks, whiting it out and then sending them as a way to cope, and she just doesn't care. She's so disillusioned with the whole corporate world that she doesn't really think about the repercussions of accidentally having someone see that. And one day she does forget to white out the statement, and it gets sent to her coworker, and her coworker reports her to HR. So now she has to go through this HR training in order to save her job and save her reputation. Along the way, she is accidentally given admin access to every single person's email so that she can see what everyone else is talking about, and which just sounds like a crazy concept, but she doesn't tell anyone about this. She just learns so much about her coworkers through that, and I love this story. Like I said, I read this at the perfect time because I am considering a big career change in my life, not really knowing what I wanted to do, but knowing what I was doing was not fulfilling enough. This book just, it punched my heart. just literally like pulled it out and punched. It's the perfect amount of like humorous and intelligent while also being incredibly introspective and emotional. Like the most important part from this story was just that it's the whole theme of you never know what's going on outside of someone's life, and that doesn't mean that you should treat them without any kindness, you know? Jolene learns so much about her co-workers, and they're all different ages, genders, races, all those sorts of things. And she just has like such deep empathy for them. The ending of this book almost made me cry because it was exactly what I needed to make the final decision for what I was going to do next with my life, and I just will read anything that Natalie Sue comes out with after this. I am just so emotionally touched by this book. I love it to pieces. There is like a little subplot of romance too that I just absolutely adored, because the main male character in that is like the biggest nerd, and I just have a soft spot for the nerds. Like, he just read so similarly to my fiance, who I love dearly, so this book just felt like it was made in a lab for me. And I also found very interesting with this book is I feel like I haven't related to a main character so deeply as I have with Jolene, because she is like the perfect representation of anxiety in the workplace, and like, you know, recovering from like having these high expectations put on you. But also I felt like she and I share like the same Myers-Briggs personality like test classification. If you don't know what the Myers-Briggs test is, it's like a 16 different personality psychology test that I'm like absolutely obsessed with. But I think she is an INFJ fully and truly, and it's so hard to find someone that like fits exactly into that mold in like characters. I love this book. Everyone should just go and read it, and if you love it, tell me why, because I need more connection over this. This was absolutely 5 stars. It is now on my favorites shelf, like the spot right here, and I'm gonna read this again probably by the end of the year, because it's that good. It was also actually so sweet because I told my mom how much I loved this book, and she went out and went to the library and picked up a copy and has been texting me about it. Like, it's such a great conversation starter, but I absolutely adored this book. It will be on my favorites of the year. After finishing that book, I listened to my first Frederick Bachman book, and it was a book that I've been trying to read for so many years but haven't actually gotten to it. I listened to A Man Called Ova on audiobook, and a lot of people love Frederick Bachman's writing, so I wanted to, you know, see what it was all about. I think I would probably enjoy Beartown a bit more than I did this one. For me, this story fell just a little flat. We're following our main character, who's like an older man, older Swedish man by the name of Ova, and he lives in like this like cul-de-sac type neighborhood where there's just a bunch of like younger families or people that still like have a lot of other people in their life, and he's just kind of like grumpy, curmudgeonly, kind of an a-hole most of the time actually, but he is lonely at the center of it all. And that story, the center of the story, is like about his loneliness and trying to figure out how to let other people into his life when the loss of someone very close to him has left this gaping hole. And while I love like the setup of the story, I feel like a lot of the different like plot beats were very predictable at times. Like, I felt like I knew exactly what was going to happen, and the more like emotional moments didn't really like hit me in the same way that I was hoping for. This book is very funny though. That is one thing that I thought was very redeeming about the story, was I actually like chortled out loud while I was reading this book. Like, I think I would like Frederick Bachman's writing, just maybe not this story, so I'm like totally willing to try like something else. I know he's got a new book coming out this year, but for me this one just didn't land in the right ways, and I love an emotional character-driven story, but this was not for me. The next book we're going to talk about, I have opinions about. So this book is The Favorites by Lane Fargo. The more I think about this book, the more I hate it. I don't actually dislike this book. Full disclaimer, I originally thought that I was going to give this book 5 stars. It was a roller coaster of a listening journey, but the audiobook is a 10 out of 10. Like, whoever did the production on that, absolutely stunning. It feels like a documentary. Like, there's like full cast narration, different voices for each and every character, and it was really, really awesome to listen to. Like, if you are going to go into this book, I would recommend the audiobook Full Sail. It was awesome. And while that part was great, I feel as if the story was a car crash. You couldn't look away from it, but also it was just so dramatic to the point where I'm like, this is nearing unbelievable territory. We're following these two people, Katarina Shaw and Heath Rocha, and they're like these famous figure skaters, but we're finding out their story of how they came to be, their career, and then their ultimate like scandal that happened at like the Olympics later on in their run time. I was so invested in the first part of this story, like finding out where they started, and it's definitely the dynamic of Katarina wanted nothing more than to be a star and to be a like figure skater that everyone recognized and wanted to be. She was very much like a I'm a B word and I know it kind of vibe, whereas like Heath just loved her and wanted to be with her, and they really only had each other in childhood, so there was that like emotional bond between them, not necessarily the most healthy bond, but that's what kind of like catapulted them into figure skating when Katarina like really found a love for it. What made me mad about the story is just how long it felt after a while. It felt like okay, but why are we doing this? Okay. And like my enjoyment and interest in the story just dwindled as we went on. I found the third act to be like incredibly insufferable, actually. Like I thought that there was just a lot of drama for drama's sake at certain times, and like I get it, it's supposed to be like the world of figure skating, which I don't know anything about, but it was too much. That's all I'm gonna say. I found myself getting very angry with most of the characters too, and like you're not supposed to love some of the characters, they're like supposed to be unlikable, but this was like, it got towards the end and I didn't understand certain character decisions. I'm like, why would the author choose to do that for that character? The ending just didn't seem like something that I would have imagined for the story. I'm planning on like a 3.5-ish, and I'm still even considering putting it down more because I'm just like so negatively attached to like the ending of the story, but I'm gonna leave it in like the 3.5 range for now, maybe closer to a 3. One thing I will say that I did really enjoy in that book was the commentary on female athletes and perception of like the media. Like Katarina Shaw like actually had an outburst in the story because during one of like her interviews, this is not like a major spoiler or anything, during one of her major interviews she was asked about like, when are you gonna like hang up your skates and start having kids? And like the male skaters don't ever get asked that. It is interesting because it feels as if women are the only ones asked about those kinds of things. Like prime example, I'm planning a wedding right now and I'm the only one who gets asked about that kind of stuff, and I'm not the girl that like dreamed about her wedding from the moment she was born. Like I'm kind of just like, I want whatever my partner and I want, you know? And everyone's like, how's it going? How's it going? They never asked my fiance, how's it going? They only asked me. So it's just interesting to kind of see that play out, but like in the greater world of like sports and media, and I've seen that happen before too. Next, I got the audiobook for Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I have read a couple Grady Hendrix books now at this point. I've read How to Sell a Haunted House, Southern Book Club's Guide for Slaying Vampires, and Final Girl Support Group. This one would probably land middle of the pack for those, in my opinion. This book was disgusting. First and foremost, like, I had an existential crisis of, oh my god, I never want to be a mother after reading this book. That's not true anymore. I'm just scared to give birth. But this book made that even more apparent. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls is a book that takes place in the 1970s. It's almost like a historical horror with witches is how I would describe it. There are these girls that get pregnant at a very young age and they become what's called wayward girls, where they're sent to this home where they kind of, nurture their pregnancy, have the baby, give the baby up for adoption, and leave. And then they return to society and no longer are seen as bad girls or abominations, essentially. And this was an actual thing in history too, which is the most disturbing part of this all. Following our main character, she goes by like the name Fern at this house because nobody gives out their real names. She's 15 years old and she's pregnant, and she got pregnant because a guy kind of took advantage of her feelings and was like, oh yeah, we'll be together, but then actually no, which is unfortunate for a lot of scenarios. But she goes to this house, gets involved with some witches in a nearby coven, and then things start going a little bit haywire. But a lot of like the horror in this is not like supernatural horror, it's more focused on like actually giving birth, which is like really terrifying in my mind. So like make sure you check all the trigger warnings and things before going into this book, because it was a lot. There were actually times where I was retching because it was so disgusting. Very well written, like don't get me wrong, that's where it shined, but it was also so hard to stomach at the same time. I was like, oh, what are you doing to me, Grady? This is terrible. Oh my god. I think the most interesting part of this book definitely was the social commentary. There's a lot of commentary about our perception of young girls who get pregnant, but then the young boys who impregnate them are not held to be accountable in the same way the young girls are. The young girls are often called like horrible names, ostracized from society, like reprimanded for being bad, but then it's like, oh, but we have to protect the boy's reputation and all of this sort of things. It is definitely not fair at all. I feel like the social commentary was probably the best part of this book, with those like really vivid scenes. But overall, this book didn't have like a wow factor to me, so it kind of lands at like a 3 to 3.25. I wouldn't like go out recommending this to every single person. It definitely is worth a read if you're into like Grady Hendrix and he's like one of your favorite horror authors, then obviously give this a read. But this one was just okay for me. Next thing I read, I am so unbelievably excited to talk about because I didn't have this on my radar at all, but this was a book club read for the Sapphic Book Club that I go to, and it was a middle grade graphic novel. That book is Mamo by Sass Milledge. This is an Australian author, and this bind-up is like the first 5 volumes, but like the art in it is absolutely stunning. Like I read it on my Kindle for book club, and then ended up buying my own copy because this was fantastic. This story follows our 2 main characters, Orla and Joanna, and they are trying to figure out, after the passing of Orla's grandmother, she left something behind for Orla to figure out with like the magic in the town. And so the reason they like end up crossing paths though is Joanna's mother is very sick, and they kind of help each other with these tasks. Vibes are like Studio Ghibli-esque. Like this book is just so sunshiny. I love the colors in it. The art is definitely like a standout. It's fantastic. We also had like a really in-depth conversation in our book club, which I'm so appreciative of, especially when you have like a graphic novel like this and you don't have many words to tell the story and you have to convey a lot through those pictures and descriptions and things. We had such a wonderfully rich conversation about like queer identity and having a sense of home, whether that's like a person or like a place, or having just, you know, where you feel safe. Main character Orla, the blonde girl right here, had a very complex relationship with her grandmother, where it was definitely like showing that her grandmother was not very supportive of her being different, and like the way that they portray it is that Orla has like a different type of magic, but her grandma was trying to teach her the way that she had known always how to use things, and it just didn't work out. There were very good like metaphors and allegories used. The story also had like kind of dark themes for a middle grade novel. Themes of like generational trauma, the crushing weight of expectations from family members, as well as as well as like not asking for help and closing yourself off. That was one of the other things that I thought was really well done in this, and like the mistrust of people, where like people are kind. People do want to help. It's not always for like a different gain, you know? But I did love the magic in this too. It was something so simple where it was like, yeah, there's a little bit of magic in everyday life, and like there were magical creatures that cropped up in this story. There was a cat, which is always great, but like the birds were magical, which was so fun. There were like these cute little rock troll creatures. Like there's a lot of like fun in this story. And it's not like entirely fantasy, like they still have like cars and bicycles and things like that. It's like a perfect snippet of fantasy and like a little bit of like young sapphic love. It was very cute. I actually gave this 5 stars because the reading experience was just incredible, and I feel like we had such a fruitful discussion, and I just want to recommend this to anyone out there who cares or is curious. It was absolutely wonderful. I'm going to get into the slew of audiobooks that I listened to in the romance category, where I was at work and I just needed something to pass the time, a fun little story, because I was doing grunt work and it was something that I could do while listening to an audiobook. So these are the books that I decided to go with. The first one that I read actually has a really funny story attached to it. So this book is called The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson, and the reason I read this is because my co-worker was recommended this by a librarian. And I just think that's really funny because my coworker had no idea like what the Omegaverse was or anything werewolf related really, and she's like 10 years older than me, so I had to explain to her like people on the internet enjoying that kind of stuff, and like we've been calling it like wolfy love and stuff. We've just been having a lot of fun with it, and if people enjoy that, that's totally fine. This was like my first experience really, because I tried to read Bride and I didn't really care for that, but that was more based on like the characters, I would say. This book follows our main characters Noah and Mackenzie, and they are like wolf shifters in this world, and like wolf shifters have actually become like kind of normalized, like it's like a normal part of society, but it's more like one of those things where it asks you like your like personal classifications, like, you know, your gender, your race, those sorts of things. That's just another thing you would check off on the box if you're a wolf shifter or not, essentially. But I love how that was integrated into the world. It made it much easier to connect to. They're both doctors, and they both have circumstances that bring them together. It's a little fake dating situation, which is my absolute favorite. Like Mackenzie needed a boyfriend because her grandma won't leave her alone, and Noah needed a fake mate because everyone found out that he's an alpha, and alphas are known to be like really aggressive in the workplace and it could damage his reputation. So they strike up a deal, and this was so much fun. I had so much fun. I went in with like no expectations, pleasantly surprised. I listened to this so quickly. I gave it 4 stars because I really did love like the characters. I think that was like the part that drew me to it the most. Mackenzie and Noah were really interesting, and I loved this. And then my coworker and I are gonna, you know, chat about it because she wanted to read it too. So like it ended up working out so wonderfully, and I was like smiling during this book, little feet kicking. I had a lot of fun. It is too spicy in my opinion though. There is a lot, and it's not something that you should read if you're not a spicy person. Even though it was like a little predictable, it was the right amount of fun and quirky, and I really enjoyed it. Like I would definitely read something else by Lana Ferguson, because I had a good time with it.
Hi friends, I'm not sure what happened, but I somehow lost the footage of me introducing this book. Sorry about that, but I read Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. Now we're going to go into what it's about.
This story follows the oldest sister, but not oldest sibling. I think her name is Emily Walker. And then it follows her and this other guy by the name of Jack. I don't remember his last name. It might be Bennett. If it is, good job me. So it's following both of them, and they're both second grade teachers that were like kind of college rivals because they got off on the wrong foot and kind of had like this petty rivalry with each other for so long because they were like high achieving individuals, you know. Eventually Jack moves into the town, teaching at the school that Emily has poured her heart and soul into, and it's just, it makes her very upset because she was like, this was supposed to be my thing, you know. And it's about their like tension, how they've always kind of had like feelings for each other, and they didn't know if it was just because they enjoyed the rivalry or if they were attracted, and thus the story unfolds from there. I think my main gripe with this book was that it takes place over the summer. Like we get no school day interactions whatsoever. Just like them being second grade teachers is kind of the backdrop, and it just adds to them as characters where it's like, oh, they care about kids and they like want to teach kids. So I feel like that part was a little disappointing because I totally wanted to see like the classroom antics and things like that. I was a little bummed out about that. I felt like a lot of the things they did against each other were kind of like childish and petty. For like characters that were supposed to be more mature, they acted very immature, and it was hard for me to like stay connected with the story because I just wasn't vibing with the two characters as much. I liked Jack more than I liked Emily, and I didn't dislike her, but I just didn't like how the story was progressing. the B plot was almost stronger than like the romance, like in general. Like throughout the story, Emily wants to be more of like a writer, and Jack has had success with writing, so they kind of team up to make that happen. And honestly, Jack has like a really complex backstory where he has a narcissistic father who's a very accomplished published mystery author, and Jack had been, worried about living in his shadow, essentially. His dad is a piece of garbage, and like with someone who has a narcissistic parent, this was fantastic representation. So I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed Jack helping Emily and like showing kindness, and that part was really good. Also, the blocking scene and the staging scene, that was my favorite part of the whole book though. And the last book that I got through in like my romance category is The Next Best Fling by Gabriela Gomez is her name. And I'd never heard of this author before, but one of my booktube friends, her name's Novels with Nora, so hi if you're watching. She's great. Go follow her page. She has really good recs. I loved this book. This book was like a hidden gem for me. I didn't think I was gonna love it as much as I did, and now I want to like make a video at the end of the year with just like hidden gems just based on this book alone. We're following our main characters, Marcella and Theo, and it's a complicated story, which I really appreciated the depth of the story. So Marcella had been in love with Theo's brother. His name was Ben, and they'd been friends forever, but Ben ends up dating one of Marcella and his mutual friends over her, and then she's left 10 years pining after him because of this, because she was just so in love with him. And then it also ruins like her friendship with that one girl. Like there's always that tension. And Theo ended up Theo is, Ben's brother, and he was in love with the girl that Ben ended up getting engaged to. So then Theo and Marcella decide to strike up like this fake situationship fling to kind of throw people off the scent, essentially. And I loved it because it was opposites attract, but done right. Like Marcella is this very like bookwormy librarian type girl, and Theo is like, football was his life. Like he played in the NFL, was recovering from an injury, and then got a job as like a high school coach, that sort of vibe. So very different things, but like they were so mature with their approach. Like they talked about their feelings. There was never like resentment or anger. And they like had this instant like emotional connection, which I really enjoyed. It was like that built off the physicality, which was really pleasant to see in the story like this. There was such a cute scene where like Marcella's hosting a book club because she works at a library, and Theo comes to it, and it's just so wonderful. He plans like a super thoughtful date for her that if someone did that date for me, I would literally die. It would be so cute. But I really enjoyed this. I felt like the third act conflict made sense too, because I don't know, like when you have a deeply emotional story like this, where there's like a lot of people's feelings that you have to watch out for because there was like a lot of pining. This was great. This was a hit. I think it's part of like a series too, because it said #1 on Goodreads, so I will definitely read whatever the next best book is in the series. These are the only ones that I own that I read this month, but I really, really loved going back and revisiting The Hunger Games, fantastic book club pick, and my new favorite book. So it was a great month overall. I'm still kind of on the romance audiobook kick, so I'm sure some of those will fall into April as well. But if you made it to the end of this video, thank you for spending some time with me. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm by the same handle, Pages and Pastimes. I also have a Webtoons comic called Tales of Grandeur that I write with one of my best friends from college. So if you're interested in graphic novels at all, or you know someone that is, please share that with them. Links will be in the description. But that is definitely like a passion project of ours. He's a fantastic illustrator, and I do a lot of like the dialogue writing. I need to write a bit more, and I always say that, but hopefully once I have some more time, I will be able to do that. But thank you for being here. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!